Anger shows up in our bodies in order to try to communicate something with us. It is not here to ruin our day, it's here to get our attention because something important needs to be heard. Most people are never taught why we experience anger. Many of us in life learned that when anger arises, we are to suppress it, explode with it, or feel ashamed for having it in the first place. And when anger shows up in our body, fast, intense, and physical, it can start to feel very scary or overwhelming. In this video, I want to help you understand why we feel anger to begin with, what's actually happening in our body when anger hits, and how to work with anger instead of fighting it, even when it feels overwhelming. And some of you may think, yeah, David, I know I'm not trying to react this way, but it feels impossible not to in the moment. Just stay with me, because once you understand what anger is doing both biologically and emotionally, it stops feeling like a personal failure, it starts to feel a lot more helpful. So what actually is anger? Anger isn't a character flaw, it's a signal. Information from your mind and body letting you know that something important needs attention. Anger tends to show up when a boundary is crossed, when something you care about feels threatened, or when a need isn't being met. And a lot of the time, anger isn't the primary emotion, but is often the loudest one, and the one that we feel the most in our body. Anger rises to the surface because it has energy. It gets your attention when quieter emotions do not. That doesn't make anger bad, it makes it effective and efficient in creating change in your situation. The problem isn't that we feel anger. The problem is that most of us were never taught how to listen to what anger is actually trying to say. So instead of listening to this message, we either push it down, act it out, or turn it against ourselves. But when you start to see anger as a communication from our body and not something to feel ashamed about, it becomes something that we could work with instead of something that you have to fight. So let's zoom in for a moment on what's happening inside your body when anger shows up. Anger isn't a mindset problem, it's a body response. So when anger shows up, your nervous system shifts into a protective state. Adrenaline enters your bloodstream, your heart rate increases, your breathing changes, blood flow moves towards your muscles. Your body is preparing to act. That's why anger feels physical. Tight jaw, clenched fists, heat in your chest, pressure, shaking. And it's also why thinking clearly gets harder in the moment. When your body is in this state, it's prioritizing protection, not reflection. Speed, not finesse. And action, not considering the long-term consequences of your actions. So you've ever said something that you didn't mean, raised your voice before you could stop yourself, thrown an expensive phone, or felt like your body moved faster than your values? That doesn't mean you're weak-minded. It means that your nervous system was doing exactly what it's designed to do when it thinks that something important is at stake. This same body response is what helps you react quickly when someone swerves into your lane, or to jump out of the way when something is falling above you, or to protect a loved one that is in a dangerous situation without hesitation. You don't need to think here, you need to act. Understanding this matters because you can't think your way out of a state that your body is in. And once you stop blaming yourself for the biology of your anger, you create enough space to respond in new ways with more intention. But how do you get through this surge of energy that wants to explode before you can act? In those moments, the goal is not to be calm. The goal is to get through the surge safely without letting anger make decisions that you can't later undo. That requires one key shift. Instead of asking, how do I stop feeling this? Try asking, how do I give my body enough space so I don't have to act on it? Because anger brings energy, and energy needs movement. This is not about suppressing anger, and it's not about acting it out. It's about creating a pause, even a small one, where your body can discharge some of that intensity and your values can come back online. For some people, that means briefly stepping away from the situation. For others, it means grounding their feet, tightening and releasing their hands, or doing an intense workout or working on breathing exercises. You don't have to get rid of anger. You just have to survive the wave without letting it pull you under. And once the intensity drops, even slightly, that's when reflection becomes possible. And that's when anger can shift from something that controls you into something you can actually listen to and respond intentionally about. This reduction in intensity is where the communication begins. It's no longer a surge of energy, it becomes information that you can learn from. This is where a lot of people get stuck because we're so used to asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? But a more helpful question is, what is this anger trying to protect? Anger almost always shows up on behalf of something that matters. A boundary being crossed, a value being disregarded, a sense of safety that feels threatened, or a need that has not been met. So instead of arguing with your anger, imagine having a conversation with it. Not to obey it, not to silence it either, but to understand it. You might ask something like, what feels threatened right now? What feels crossed, dismissed, or taken from me? What am I needing in this moment that I do not have? Very often, what anger is pointing toward isn't rage, but hurt, fear, grief, the pain of not feeling respected, or feeling like you have been taken advantage of. Anger speaks loudly because what's underneath it often feels vulnerable and significant. And when you can hear that message, anger doesn't have to keep escalating in your body just to be noticed. When you listen this way, anger becomes a teammate, not a commander or a nuisance. Once you've gotten through the surge and you've listened to what your anger is trying to communicate, there's one final piece that matters. How do you respond without suppressing it and without exploding? Because for a lot of people, those feel like the only two options. Either you shove the anger down and pretend like you're fine, or you let it come out however it wants and deal with the fallout later. But there's a third option that I want to highlight, that is allowing anger to exist without letting it control your behavior. It means acknowledging something matters here while still being intentional about how you show up in your current environment. You can ask yourself, what response here protects what matters to me without causing harm to myself or someone else that I care about? That might mean setting a boundary with someone. It might mean naming what you're feeling instead of acting it out. Or it might even mean choosing to briefly pause a conversation until you can come back feeling more grounded and clear-minded. I find it very important to note that over time, when anger learns that it will be heard without having to escalate, it often shows up less intensely next time, because you're not suppressing it, but because your anger doesn't have to scream to get your attention anymore. This is what it looks like to have a healthier relationship with anger. Not control, not avoidance, but awareness, choice, and respect for what the emotion is trying to communicate and protect. This is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice, patience, and compassion with yourself along the way. If anger ever feels overwhelming, unsafe, or like it's causing you to harm yourself or others, reaching out for support can benefit you greatly. If this was helpful, you're welcome to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing this too. And if you're open to it, I'd love to hear from you in the comments, any insights that you've gotten from this video. Before you go, if you have been having a difficult time with emotional regulation or managing anger or anxiety, I encourage you to watch this video in which I discuss how to utilize an emotional regulation tool to help you better manage some of those more intense emotional surges that we've discussed in this video. As always, your mental health matters, and so do you.